Hey ladies, welcome back to the show. On today's episode, we are going to talk about transforming statements that we say to ourselves that are often detrimental into empowering messages. I came across an account on social media. I was scrolling, and it was basically this guy. And I can't even remember what account it was now. And he was talking about these messages that you say to kids. And there's so much now about like, you say this to a kid and this is the way you phrase that statement. And this will help with your kids' growth and self-esteem and self-development. And the whole entire time I was watching it, I found myself thinking like, I need this. I need someone to tell me these things. And I realized that we pay so much, or at least I do, so much attention on what I say to my kid and what I say to other people, but not much about what I say to myself. And perhaps you find yourself in this place too. So today we're going to talk about some of the more common phrases that we probably say to other people that we don't in fact say to ourselves. And maybe we grew up in a different time period, which we probably all did. And what we do for kids now and to empower them, we didn't have anybody to do that for us. And so we're going to talk about that today in an effort to hopefully empower you to grow and transform and do the emotional work that maybe you hadn't thought of or hadn't done. And maybe a way that you can start this is by shifting some of the words that you're saying to yourself. So potentially you can have that growth that you are looking for. Because when it comes to any health, wellness, or self-care goal, having this awareness and changing this mindset and that negative self-talk is something that's really important for growth to occur. Welcome to the Whole Health Empowerment Project podcast. This show is for women over 40 who are trying to create balance in their life when it comes to food, body, self-care, and wellness. You struggle to put yourself first, to maintain consistency when something isn't perfect, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time or willpower to achieve the goals you desire. I'm your host, Trisha Stefankowitz, registered dietitian, nutritionist. I've worked with women like you achieve their goals by focusing on the next best step, no matter how messy, and meeting you where you are right now. In this show, you'll learn practical information, actionable strategies, and mindset tweaks so that you can feel healthier, more comfortable in your body, and make choices that work for your life. Come join me in failing forward, one imperfect step at a time, into the journey of health, wellness, and self-care. Welcome to your new project. So right now I am working with my therapist about challenging and changing the negative statements that I probably don't even know that I'm saying to myself, that are just kind of in that thought loop in my head. But I'm always aware of the things that I'm saying to other people, the things that I'm saying to my child. And so much of the time, I think we all know this, that we watch what we say because we're trying to create this wholeness within that human. We want to be in a place that we're validating their emotions, that we're empowering them through encouragement, that we're focusing on like effort and progress and not really the outcome. And that overall, we're fostering this mindset of growth that can highlight any of the opportunities that could become available to them for learning development. But what happens when you don't take the time to say these things to yourself so that you don't have any of these positive things that are on repeat that you're saying to yourself? Well, it creates feelings of self-doubt. It hinders how you deal with your emotions. It influences the coping mechanisms that you use. It tends to have this feeling of erosion of your self-worth or your sense of belonging, your sense of value and esteem. It can create limiting beliefs. It can create critical things that you say to yourself. And it also limits what you feel like you are capable of accomplishing or doing. And it puts you at risk for anxiety and depression, which I think a lot of people are suffering from. I know I certainly do have anxiety. And so that's why I think it's important to start figuring out some of the things that we say to ourselves. And a lot of the emotional work that I'm doing, I'm working with a therapist to do. And so certainly know that I am not a therapist, and some of the things that we talk about here are just some easier ways for you to begin tackling this idea today. But certainly knowing that if you are really going to dive in, using the help of some mental health professional will probably help you along and help you go much further. But today we're going to talk about creating awareness around our core beliefs so that you can start to identify it and replace it with a statement that is true. And so today we are going to start to create awareness so that you can identify some of the statements that you're using and then start to create or replace it with a statement that is true so that you have this detrimental thing that you say to yourself and then you replace it with a statement that is true. And that's called your replacement belief. And then hopefully over time, you can start to change the way that you're speaking to yourself so that instead of becoming this detrimental thing that continues these negative behaviors or the negative thoughts or the critical thinking, you can start to switch it into something that feels true to you and something that you can believe in, which will then hopefully help you grow and transform into who you want to be. And as I've said, I too am working on this in my own therapy. And so perhaps this can be a starting point for you too. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the first statement, and I think probably the one that's probably the most common that I hear is I should be doing blank. I should be exercising. I should be eating this way, or vice versa. I should not be eating this way. So it's always this idea of should. Either you should be doing something or you should not be doing something. And one of the problems with should is that it's often linked, the word, to some kind of shame and guilt because you're not doing it or you're thinking that you're somehow failing at something that you're not doing. And so the word should in itself can be really challenging because it brings up those beliefs. And so instead of saying something like I should be, really saying I am fortunate to have the opportunity to do this, or to say my goal is, or I could do this, or I would like to do this. So it's a way that you can start to take out the should and put something in there that is real. So I should be exercising. Maybe you say something like, my goal is to exercise. I would like to exercise. I am fortunate to have the opportunity to exercise. There's nothing like when you can't do something to realize how fortunate you are that you can do something. And so I think it's just this way of being able to reframe it so that you're taking the should out of the sentence and putting something else in there. There was one of the examples that I've read online that, especially when it comes to your feelings, like I should feel happy, and instead take out the should and put in I feel happy. So the goal here is to take out the should and to put something else in there that can become your replacement belief. I think it's also important to understand that one of the things that you need to do here when we talk about these statements, because I'm going to go through a couple of them, are basically that you have to be able to identify that you're saying it. So many of our beliefs are these beliefs that we don't even think about. And so you may need a couple minutes to just, or even a day, to go through and think about some of the things that you're either saying out loud to other people when you're talking to them, or that you are just writing down some of the things that you tell yourself that maybe you haven't even identified or said out loud. And I suspect you are saying this should statement because I think probably this is one of the more common ones. So again, taking out the should instead of saying I should be doing whatever, replacing it with I could be doing this, I would like to do this, and take out the should in that statement. Another one here, or I think this one is a little bit more of like an internal voice, is I'm not good enough. And I know I struggle with this one. And so some of the things that I think that we can replace that with is I'm capable of learning. I'm capable of growing from this experience. I have the capacity to keep learning and growing and exploring and doing the things that I want to do. And so see how different that statement is. Instead of just telling yourself that you can't do something, you have this nurturing in it and this hope in that statement. And it feels like, oh, I could possibly do this. And that's the goal with a lot of these statements, is turning it around in a way that it doesn't become your truth, because I'm sure that all of you are good enough and all of you are capable of learning and growing. But sometimes when we get in this space that we feel like the world is against us, it's very easy to go to a place of self-doubt and feeling like we're not able, or we don't have the skills to do what we want to achieve. Another one I hear is, I'm such a failure. And I think that what's important to understand from that statement is, how can you reframe that in a way that still provides you with some encouragement that you can keep going, that the failure isn't the end point. And so maybe a replacement belief could look something like, okay, this isn't where I want to be right now, but I'm going to keep going. Or, okay, this might be a setback, but I'm resilient. I know what to do with setbacks, and I'll pivot and do this, or I'll keep moving forward. So it's a way that you're reframing that into, instead of saying a statement that is the end all be all, that you're believing, that you can start to put a little bit of hope in that belief. Another one that I know I've said, and maybe as a woman, you've said this too, like, I can't handle this. This feels too hard. How do you reframe that? Well, I think it's saying something like, okay, this feels really challenging, so that you're identifying what are the emotions that you are feeling. There's truth to that. And that you also have the strength that you can overcome it. Maybe you have a lot of support, and that support will help you overcome it. Kind of seeing it for what it is and really digging out some of the truth in the statement, as opposed to just this blanket statement of, I can't handle it, it's too hard. Another one, and I think this is a really good one, especially if you have kids or you have people learning from you, if you're around people that are learning from you, is, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I made that mistake. Would be to reframe that in that, yeah, maybe you did make a mistake, but that mistake provided an opportunity for learning. Maybe that mistake provided an opportunity for growth to come that wouldn't have otherwise come if you didn't have that mistake. And so it's, again, talking to yourself the way that you would talk to other people. If someone else made a mistake, or you heard someone else use any of these statements that seem really harsh and really critical, what would you do, and how would you speak to somebody else that was framed in truth, but that you could get behind, that would potentially make them feel better? You're essentially doing that for yourself. You could be somebody who thinks, I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to achieve the goal that I want. And you could start to reframe that in the way that somebody else would speak to you, which would probably be like, you can be successful. You are determined to work hard. You are determined to pursue your goals. And you get up and you're consistent, and you do that no matter what your obstacles are. And I guess in some ways, it is kind of providing some form of evidence about like what it is you do. Just that you're having some truth to the statement that will provide you with something that is again, not just a blanket statement that probably doesn't really have any truth to it, but you've repeated it for so long to yourself that it has become part of your story. And some of the other things that I think about too are these other things that we say to ourselves, like, once I achieve this, I will be happy. I've said that to myself so many times, and it could be about weight. It could be about achieving a certain goal that you want. My guess is you're probably or have said this to yourself at some point in time, no matter what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and you're not quite there yet. And so you get to a place that you're holding off on being happy or feeling the feelings that you want to feel because you feel like, I just have to get this one next obstacle under my belt and then I'll be able to feel this way. But instead, we can say, and we can reframe that to, I choose to be happy right now. I choose to be joyful and to not let the situation get to where, or for me to achieve that accomplishment before I feel that. Because you're never going to want to postpone that feeling of joy and purpose and happiness. And you have to understand that in all of this, it's a process. So do I think that inherently you're going to be like, oh, I feel really good about myself after I listen to this podcast? No, but I think knowing that this opportunity for growth is, in anything that you're learning, is lifelong. And that includes being happy and saying things to ourselves that are really nice. It's not something that just develops just because we decide out of the blue one day that we're going to feel this way. It's actually having a choice to say something different to yourself that maybe you don't even believe right now. And so you're redefining and reframing the way that you talk to yourself so that you can start to embrace where you are right now and to continue to have hope that you can continue to move forward and not get stuck in this place where you're thinking that you can't achieve these things and that you are somehow not worthy of achieving any of these things. And also thinking about how you would talk to kids around you, how you talk to your friends, how you talk to your neighbors, how you talk to anybody else but yourself. And that's kind of the goal here, is to start thinking about what you say to yourself, creating awareness around it, and then replacing those statements with something else that can seem like a much truer statement. One of the last ones I'm going to talk about is this idea of, like, I am going to take care of my health when everything else is in order, or I'm going to just wait a little bit longer before I do this thing because I'm not ready. Well, I think it's also important to understand that you can start to say to yourself that your health is important now. Your health, no matter how small it may seem to you, the change that you want to do, you can do that now. You don't have to wait from that. So instead of saying, I'll take care of my health when everything else is in order, saying something instead that your health can take priority. You don't have to have a health decision that's really terrible in order for you to make changes with your health, that you can today start working on your health. And so maybe that's your statement, is, I'm going to take control of my health today. And knowing that with anything, you're going to do these little things that are going to make an impact over time. And that's what these statements do. They are essentially reframing any of the negative self-talk that you're doing into statements that are more positive and that feel more empowering to you, so that as part of this growth mindset and changing the mindset and the negative thoughts that you have now, that you're able to create more self-compassion, more resilience, and overall more growth. Because these messages encourage you to be more optimistic, give you a sense of agency, and also empower you to get through these challenges that ultimately are going to come your way. And again, these are just statements that we're talking about today. And if you feel like you really need to dig into that a little bit further, certainly seek the help of a mental health professional, because I know that for sure that has helped me a lot. And then also knowing that it's not going to happen just today if you decide that you're going to take this statement and instead of saying, I don't feel like I'm good enough, saying that like, I'm capable, I can do this. That it's not going to just take one time for you to say that in order for that to become a reality. It's going to be something that you will probably have to repeat a pretty decent amount of times to make this thought become a little bit more part of you and a little bit more ingrained into who you are trying to become. But the more important thing is that you have awareness about what these statements are. And then as you start to repeat them with the replacement statement over and over again, that will hopefully help balance out some of the thoughts that you're having, because now you've replaced some of the negative beliefs with some ones that have been reframed into positive beliefs. And then over time, as you do that more and more often, you'll not only hopefully start to believe it, but you're just going to be in a place where you're able to feel a little bit more determined and have a little bit more of that growth that you're trying to achieve. So in conclusion, knowing that all of the words that you have and that you say to other people that I know you're really aware of, but also that you say to yourself, can either have the power to uplift you and make you feel empowered and wonderful about yourself, or they can also work against you and diminish your feelings of potential and decrease your feelings of confidence and make you feel like you're not worthy or that you can't do something. And so by recognizing and transforming some of those detrimental statements, like the I should not be doing something, into something that is more of what is possible, such as I could work out, I can exercise, I'm happy and fortunate to be able to move, and that my body looks a certain way. Instead of saying, I shouldn't look like this, you say something like, my body is doing something positive for me, or reframe that in a way that you can find the positive in that. That's really what's going to be helpful for you to nurture your growth, help with an overall sense of well-being, help to create resilience in you. And I think with all of this podcast, the goal of it is to create positivity within your environment, within yourself. You can also provide yourself by saying some of these statements, some encouragement and the support that maybe you're not getting from anybody else, but that you can get from yourself, where starting to believe these things and starting to say these things to yourself will really help you start to feel more valued, more heard, more inspired, and more supported by yourself, so that you can get to a place where you are reaching your full potential, especially when it comes to your health, wellness, and self-care goals. So I appreciate you guys listening today. And I want to remind you that you can go on over to the show notes of this podcast and you can find the freebie of what you should be doing now if you're over 40. And I will see you guys back here again next week. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found value in this podcast, please rate, review, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Together, we can take tiny, imperfect steps towards creating the whole health we desire and deserve. Don't forget to grab your freebie. You can find the link in your show notes or over at triciard.com. I'll see you back here next week.